Right, I'm trying to keep up with doing a regular video, but it's going to be a short one this week because I haven't really got a lot of time to do it, to be honest. So, I did a little review last time. Thought I'd try and do a bit of an instructional video this time, and looking at something which you sort of commonly see people doing wrong, especially people who are just starting out. And I think it probably leads to a lot of frustration. And that's how to get a piece of wood that's twisted straight using machines that you'd have in a woodworking shop. So we're going to be looking at a surface planer, or a planer, which if you're American you'll probably call it a jointer, but here in the UK we call them planers. And really the common sort of problems that people have with planing out twist, and what we mean by twist and how you can see it and best ways to avoid it really. So we've got a piece of timber here that we're going to use as an example. This is just a bit of beech, and typically when I wanted something that was twisted I couldn't find it, so I've grabbed a hand plane and I've just kind of planed this into a bit of wind, into twist, into wind. And you can, on a small piece like this, it's easy to tell because you can put it on a flat surface, so it's just, you know, sliding tape from a panel saw here, and nice and flat. And if you push on these two corners, you can see that we've got a lot of rocking, and that's where we've got two high spots here and here. You see, push on here, we get very little movement, if any. And what you see in there is twisting the board. So as the board goes along, it's turning as it goes, and you're getting a kind of spiral shape to it. And you can soon lose a lot of stock trying to plane out wind if you don't know how to do it properly. And I think a lot of people assume that just by putting a piece of wood over the top of a surface planer or a jointer, that it's going to come out straight. But there is some technique involved to be able to do it, one, efficiently and waste the minimum amount of wood, and just to get a result that ends up with it being a flat piece of wood and not just a smooth but still twisted piece. So first thing I suppose is spotting twist, how you can tell if a piece of wood's twisted, and the obvious things, you know, like I said here, flat surface and it rocks. Now if you've got something that's a much longer piece of timber, it might be harder to just find something big enough to lay it on and twist it. I mean, you can generally, if it's really bad, you can just see it with your eye. You know, you'll be able to tell just by looking at it. But like another common thing that people use is what's called winding sticks, and you can get really fancy ones of these. You can make them yourself. Essentially, all it is two sticks that are the same width, like these, and they're approximately the same length. It doesn't matter too much, about a foot wide as a piece of timber you like to be using. And they just want to be two different colours, so you can make these with just a couple of little scraps of timber, paint one black, paint one white, that'll work. I've just got a bit of aluminium bar and a piece of timber here, that works fine. And what you do is you'll rest these on either end of the timber, and then your eye down from this point, and you're looking for those sticks not lining up. So if you're getting a crisscross going on with those sticks, that means that timber's in wind, and that's winding sticks. So that could be like a useful 2-minute thing that you can make. I mean, literally are just scraps, so you know, it doesn't take any real effort. You can make them fancy if you want though. So what we've got to do is we're going to take this over to the planer, and we'll have a look at what we should be doing to take this twist out of the board, to take this wind out of the board actually at the planer. So that's what we're going to go and have a quick look at now. Right, so we're over at the planer, or jointer, or surface planer, whatever your preference is to call it. You can see this is a piece of timber we had a minute ago. Now you can see on these tables, you can see this kind of twisted registration. So again, touching at these points, but twisted here. Now the common thing that you see people do, which will result in them getting you still have a smooth board, your board will be smooth, but it will still be twisted, is that they keep the pressure over the cutter block throughout the entire pass through the machine. So at this point as they come through, they're pushing down into the cutter block here. Now you're pushing this low spot down. Now as the board twists as it goes through, you're still keeping it flat against the table. By the time you get to this back corner, you're pushing the opposite corner back down. So at this point you're pushing this inside corner in. Now what you're essentially doing there is you're forcing the twist into the board. So as you're planing that twist back into it. So what's important to do is to try and make sure that you're registering from a single plane. So you're trying to get these two twisted planes of timber back straight. Now, the most simple way of doing that, you know, probably the easiest way of doing it, is that you're going to start by having your pressure over the most stable corner. So you look at your board, I mean this board wants to sit here. Now this might vary a little bit because if the grain of the timber is really all over the place, you might have to play in the opposite direction. But this board wants to sit on this corner. This is where its heavy spot is. When, you know, it's probably where you've also got the bulk of the timber, because you'll tend to find the corner that wants to sit down is going to be the thickest corner, where you can afford to lose the most when machining. So we're going to have this table come here, and we're going to push down into the table as we come through. Let's get over that. So we're going to push down. Now, what we want to do at this point is we want to try and keep registering from this point. So as we go through, we're going to keep pushing down on this point here. We're not going to move our hands back and start taking pressure here or forcing pressure down here. We're going to keep it at this front point. Now, this technique becomes more important the longer the timber gets, and having a good understanding of what you're doing gets more important the longer the timber is. On short pieces, you kind of get away with just passing it over just because it's so short that the tables will eventually just even it out for you. But you had something, you know, this isn't a particularly long surface plane. This is probably, I think it's about 1.6 metres, something like that, just over 5 foot. So, you know, not huge. But you can easily plane an 8-foot piece of timber, take a twist out of it, no problem, providing you're using the right technique to do it. So, again, you're going to come through, and you've got to keep all of the pressure on this corner. And you're not trying to kill it, you know, you're not trying to ram it into the table, you're just keeping it from rocking, you're just keeping it from this corner here dipping back down into the table. You're trying to keep that corner constantly pressed down and just registering on the table. So you're using this flat surface here as a registration. Now, as long as that's what you're registering against, that is what the cutter block will cut. So the cutter block will always cut whatever is going on at the front of the board. So if as the board goes through, the front of the board is twisting, then the cutter block will cut the board. Right, so we've taken a couple of passes off there, so you know, not removed tons of material, but you can see you're pressing against here now. This is completely flat, and both of these ends are in plane with each other, and you can see better off on the higher table here, but we've lost this twist. And the reason we've lost it is because we've kept the same registration point as we've gone through the machine. Now this was probably twisted, I don't know, maybe 1/4 of an inch, something like that. It was about 6 mil. So, you know, relatively twisted board, and it's not taking a lot of passes to get that back to flat, and that's because all we're removing is the points that are making contact with the table whilst it's twisted. So we're keeping that point registering, we're keeping the other high point being cut, and all we're cutting is high points on the timber, and that's really what's important. You're not just taking an even cut off it. And I don't know how well it will show up in the video, but when that was being cut, you can hear that you're getting a different tone as the board's going through. So at some points it's taking more off than it is at other points. So that is right. I think people worry sometimes that their cut isn't even going through the board, especially with bow timber. People push the board really hard down in the middle and force the bow back into the piece of timber so that they're not removing that bow. And you should hear a change in tone of the cutter block as it's removing more waste at the points where it's flatter and less waste at the points where it's most twisted. So hopefully that sort of shows up on there. As I say, it's only a quick video today. Hopefully it's sort of helpful for somebody. But yeah, if you've got any questions, just ask them. Cheers.